Welcome, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the Never Ending Adventure Podcast and Adventure Time Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Russell Tyndall, and with me, as always, is
Diggity DJ Nettie P.
Nettie P. We are back this week talking about, we're going to talk about Marceline. We had a really awesome episode last week. If you haven't heard it, or I guess it was a week ago, we took a week break. You should go check it out. It was amazing. We had Olivia Olson on. And it was a little bit of a dream scenario for the both of us. I can't believe on our 100th episode, we hit 100,000 downloads. We had, just all these things come together. It's been 2 years of recording this podcast. And we got one of the voice actors for Adventure Time and one of the coolest characters, without a doubt, of Adventure Time on the podcast. And yeah, I just hope you guys really enjoyed that. And it kind of inspired this episode of us we'll catch up a little bit. We'll get into Marcy. And then, I think we might spend some time in some Traveler's Logs. But Ned, how you been doing?
Been good, man. I'm tired this week. I don't know if it's allergy tired because, man, I don't know if you guys have been down to the South in April, but it is like allergy city down here. And it takes a toll on your sleep and your breathing. You could probably tell in the last episode I was congested as anything too. I went back and listened to it. I was like, oh my gosh, I sound like I'm breathing out of my mouth.
Oh, that's okay. It happens, especially with allergy season and whatnot. But man, I went out and I got we bought a weed whacker. We're doing adult things.
Doing adult things on Saturdays.
So we got a weed whacker and a blower, and just that's my first time with a weed whacker, man. So much power, just destroying the weeds.
That's your first time with a weed whacker?
Just absolutely murdering the weeds. Totally. I mean, they didn't stand a chance. They tried, but I just right through them, But
I love my string trimmer.
My mom loved doing yard work when I was a kid, so I was very fortunate not to have to do any yard work. I mowed one time, and I think I did a bad job.
Oh, dang!
And so
son.
I kind of was off the hook.
I got dragged out of bed at 7 a.m. every Saturday growing up. My dad being like, "We're gonna spend the day in the yard, and you don't have a choice."
Oh,
my reward would be to get an icy at the gas station or something like that.
Yeah,
and I'm talking, this was when I was 17 too, not 10.
Wow. Yeah, when I was 10, one time from my grandma, we picked up pine cones in her yard. I think we were paid a penny per pine cone or something like that.
I'm about to do that with the neighbors' kids. We got all these rocks in our backyard that always fall off the rock path. I'm about to pay the 5-year-old neighbor kid a nickel per rock or something like that.
Are you really going to recruit the neighbors' kids for that?
Oh, yeah. Well, they're coming over to me going, I'm trying to save up a trip to Disney World. What can I do? And I'm like, pick up rocks. I don't know.
You're going to need a lot of rocks.
You're closer to the ground than I am.
Disney World. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, it's fun, man. I'd say all in all, that is kind of finally the nice part about, I don't know. Hopefully where everybody's listening from, maybe unless you're in Australia where it's becoming winter time right now, but everywhere else, everything's kind of lightening up. We're getting nice days. I'm in shorts. I was outside today. It was nice. It's going to be a fun season of also recording podcasts when it's not always just dark and nighttime outside when we're recording over here.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Ned, I was so curious how you felt about our time we spent with Marceline, with Olivia Olson. How was that for you? Was that a little bit of a dream scenario? Could you even believe that happened? Yeah, you actually got to talk to a voice actor?
It was such a kind of surreal experience. I don't have a lot of celebrity experience. I also don't get starstruck a lot, or it would take a lot to starstruck me. So when we first got her on and we were kind of prepping for our recording, I was like, okay, let's all keep it cool. Let's not try to fangirl out. Let's treat her like a person, as if you would pop on a podcast with a normal person. And our kind of breaking the ice with her before we started recording actually really, really helped with the rest of the podcast, with being you're a normal person. We want to hear what you have to say, not we're interviewing you on, 60 Minutes or anything like that.
Yeah, so it felt smooth, though. It felt good.
Yeah,
I felt like we had a very comfortable, normal conversation with her. And we had some little bits that I wasn't expecting to hear. I love that we talked about what wasn't truly the inspiration for the fries, but she had a story that her father being Hudson Avedere, the cake. Yeah, just that's such a funny, weird parallel that she could relate to. And I'm sure she's honed in on those things over the years with people asking her questions and whatnot. But she was a natural.
Yeah, well, and I would say like it comes off though. I mean, I'm not trying to toot our own horn over here, but I was like, if we had her on episode 10 of the podcast, we would have crashed and burned. We kept our cool. We, again, had just a great conversation with her, and I think that's a little bit of us, a lot of her too, a lot of her jumping in and not just answering the questions that we had for her.
She carried it in many ways.
Answers, and she carried it. And so, to answer your original question, I kind of blacked out a little bit, just like in the moment, like, in the moment you're like, what's happening? All of a sudden we just did this, really intense. And I was like, what did we talk about? What just happened? So I went back and listened to it this week and was like, oh my gosh, that's like when I listen to podcasts about TV shows and they're like, we've got a special guest. We got this person who's on the show giving their experience. That's the content I want to listen to, and that like keeps me really engaged. And so with her giving her insight, I was like, that's awesome. This is the type of content that I consume on like for all other shows. Cool.
I'm just glad. It was so funny afterwards because we did end up talking with her for like another 25 minutes until Ned finally was like, I'm kind of hungry. I'm gonna let's go.
I was like, I wanted to not like be like, she gave us at least like 3 hours of her time. So I was like,
so much of her time. Well, she was like, I was so glad that when I joined, y'all weren't just like, oh, Marceline, thank you for hello. We weren't creepy, we weren't weird. I mean, we were plenty of weird, but we weren't.
I mean, she could have gone into that situation going, are these just like super weird, creepy 30-year-old dudes doing in a kids podcast? We're just really weird.
Partially weird, creepy 30-year-old dudes doing a kids podcast.
Yeah, just a little weird. Just a little bit.
A little touch of it. Well, like I said, it inspired my desire to want to talk about Marceline. And up until this episode, or where we are in the series right now, we're in season 4, like halfway through episode 15-ish or 16. And I felt like it was time that we caught back up. And what a good time to do it after we had the voice actor on the podcast. There's a slew of episodes where she's either a big part of or a little part of, or maybe even like not really there, but the context of the episode. I mean, if we're talking about Return to the Nightosphere and Daddy's Little Monster, which we covered pretty recently in season 4, those 2 episodes are really about her and about her relationship and about the Nightosphere, which is a place where she's probably spent a ton of time. It was interesting. I just wanted to spend some time talking about Marceline and see where we're at, see how we're feeling, and also revisit that first season, like Evicted. What was that? Season 1, episode 12, and kind of get those vibes going. Ed, how do you feel about your review of these episodes this week? We'll just start off like really high level, and then we'll dig in.
I mean, I did not have to go back and watch these episodes. Obviously, even watching them, then podcast reviewing them, like I know each one of them themselves. I think one of the things that hits the strongest with me, though, with like kind of what you said, where we're at right now, into season 4, we get this cool double episode with Marceline again. That's the third double episode kind of rollover that we've had in the show up to this point. So obviously that they were kind of indicating this is important. We're doing some more canon development. However, what we mentioned with Olivia last week is that, season 1, she had been kind of a jerk. They give her a little bit more credibility backstory at the beginning of season 2 with It Came to the Nightosphere, bringing Hudson Abadir in there. We get more and more again with Heat Signature. We see that she's not all that bad. Memory of a Memory. All of a sudden, we see that she's normal as well. Again, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You're just flying through these episodes.
Yeah, well, Memory of a Memory was again. Okay, we know she's old, but she's had old relationships, and I was gonna say we really get vulnerable with her with Marcy's Closet. Again, weirdly enough, still one of my favorite episodes. It's up to this point. Still, I think that would probably live in top 5 to 10, maybe.
Wow.
And it's because, again, like beginning of the show, they were like, she's this crazy beast. She rides goldfish. She's 1,000 years old. She's a vampire slayer. And in the Marcy's closet, she's just like flicking boogers and like kind of hanging out in a house. Yeah. And it humanizes her. And then that is a perfect lead into Return to the Nightosphere, Daddy's Little Monster again. Humanizing her, having real father-daughter relationships, problems that we all have and deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Let's go straight into the Traveler's Log. And now that we've this
you asked me to say, hey, what you literally said, where how do you feel like level. Up to this point?
I know, but I guess it was too broad of a question. Well, you do bring up a lot of interesting things, and I mean, I had to go back through and rewatch all these episodes. I mean, I definitely had to. These aren't things that I've spent a lot of time in outside of when we were initially reviewing them. And I actually ranked all of them just kind of out of my own curiosity where I felt like where we were with these Marceline episodes. And they were all pretty dang good. I got to say, I've got a couple threes, but again, I'm rating pretty difficult out of 5. And I mean, I've got a few like 4s, 4.5s. I mean, obviously what was missing is my favorite one without a doubt.
I knew that was going to be your number 1.
But then you have It Came from the Nightosphere is probably number 2 with a 4.5. And of course, Memory of a Memory is a fantastic episode. And then Evicted are like my top episodes with Marceline. But she, for whatever reason, has gotten good episode after good episode after good episode. Not one of them did I want to skip. Each of them I was like, all right, I'll sit in this and enjoy this. And especially like Evicted kind of does get into that treehousey thing that you like so much. They do adventure outside of that, but so much of it is just, hey, we're in this little area and this is about our relationships and about goofy interactions. And she's just so oddly flirtatious with him that whole time. You get the first of what I know of 2 kisses on the cheek with Marceline and Finn, where it's just kind of like, okay, what is happening? And of course that song where she's just like, she just lost track of her moral code, but she's like, is she a good guy? Will she become a good guy? Or is she just like being impressed by Finn and Jake in these the first 2 seasons? It kind of feels a little bit like she's not really caring for other people outside of like, oh, Finn's pretty cool. Like, I want to hang out with Finn a little bit more. Oh, Jake's pretty cool. Like, he can hang, he can come along and we'll adventure. And Finn really seems to impress her with the way that he goes about like attacking her and like holding like up to her level of fighting in that first episode. And she's like, oh man, this guy can hang. Like, I'm going to have to like hang out with them again pretty soon here. I think.
And I think that's Olivia had a good point around that, in that there's a possibility that she sees Finn as the human and like the human side of her, which opens up again kind of maybe more of an openness to finally having friends and settling down and not really kind of being a vagabond, I guess. But the other aspect of it too is like, when Finn goes and smacks her in the face, she's probably dealt with a lot of beings like Jake that just they see vampire and they run. You'll get some history
run or
about
killer, right?
Yeah, you'll get some history behind that in season 7 as well. A little bit more, how have people interacted with Marcy in the past? And then I think that once Finn smacks her in the face, she goes, okay, we could have like a peer-to-peer level relationship at that point.
It is really interesting that Jake, essentially is almost killed by her. She did get to see in that fight with them and Evicted Jake's powers slightly before this happens, before she sucks out his blood, right? Or tries to suck out his blood. But for whatever reason, Jake is able to like put it in his thumb behind his back, which we don't see initially. But then in the very next episode, Jake goes all out and tries to kill her. I mean, they weren't really holding back. I don't know if either one of them were holding back and trying to kill the other person. And Henchman, when he basically like makes her vulnerable to the sunlight and then goes to try and stab her with the stake and throws garlic at her and all that, like pretty brutal attacks on both sides there. So seeing their relationship morph a little bit from there to Go With Me, where she's just like already hanging out inside their treehouse, and she's like, Jake's like, I'm like kind of getting over this vampire fearness. I'm like, I'll call her up and let's get her here because she could be an expert. She could help me help you with Princess Bubblegum.
Yeah. Yeah, well, after Go With Me, I mean, obviously, I think that's probably why Go With Me and Heat Signature are like right next to each other, because it's again like, hey, she's hanging out, but like, do we really trust her? She's still kind of pulling pranks. She's still kind of busting their chops, a little bit.
But and it came from the Nightosphere. She's, again, not necessarily trying to be a good guy. She's just trying to get her axe back. She's annoyed at her dad, and she doesn't like what's going on. She hates that he's here, and then he stole the family axe, the guitar or the bass guitar that she plays. She wants it back, and she could care less that everybody else is out there getting their souls sucked up. But I do think as it goes on, like, you have that more fright. So from pranking, being goofy, to kind of being impressed with Finn and Jake, and then now we're like, oh, yeah, like, I do care about you, Finn, and I don't want you to get hurt, but honestly, I could care less about everybody else around me, and I just want the axe. And then even into Memory of a Memory, like, that is just her being like, oh, I want to hang out with all of y'all. Like,
yeah,
I'm here trying to be friends with everybody,
I mean, break that down even further. It's not just, oh, I'm here trying to be friends with you. In Memory of a Memory, Jake and Finn legitimately save her from an ex-boyfriend that brainwashed her. Magically brainwashed her. So that, I mean, if you look at all the episodes laid out in this kind of way, Memory of a Memory is a huge turning point in the sense that, yeah, she's always wanted to hang out with them, but keeps them you can kind of tell, keeps them at arm's distance, plays funny pranks on them, likes to scare them a little bit, keep them on their toes. And I think Memory of a Memory also kind of breaks that barrier of like, oh, these guys like would die to save me. From a crazy ex-boyfriend,
Well, we see it too in Heat Signature, which is right before that, right? Season 2, episode 26.
But they're not saving her.
No, but it's the other way around. She goes, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for y'all. I want to save you guys. Hey, like, Wendy, Boo, and Georgie, y'all went way too far. We gotta stop this.
Like,
these are my
buddies. Guilt thing. Yeah. But it's like, then the again, favors returned. Like, she saved them again. That's probably kind of where she's been in for the last 1,000 years of like, I'm so powerful. Like, when do I ever need to be saved myself? I'm immortal and a vampire and can fly and can shapeshift and I have all these powers. So Memory of Memories, that's what I'm saying. And that's a little bit more of a turning point because it's like she needed to be rescued. And I mean, same with Daddy's Little Monster. Like, was the one that needed to be rescued from her dad at that point.
Yeah, it seems like both Heat Signature and Memory of a Memory, which are 2 different seasons, but pretty close in the timeline, season 2, episode 26, and season 3, episode 3, those are the 2 that kind of cemented in my mind, like, oh, they're buds, and like, it's cool. And actually, so as we're watching through Heat Signature, Allie had an awesome, theoretically speaking, based off of the conversation we had last week with Olivia Olson, where she gave a big spoiler away. And if you don't want to hear it again, I mean, I'm about to say it, where Marceline went and killed all the vampires, right? We know that Georgie and Bobo or Boo Boo and Wendy are people that she used to run with back in the day. And Allie's, theoretically speaking, was she had murdered them back in the day and they were all vampires. But then she, for whatever reason, had to kill all 3 of them. And I was like, oh man, that's like, maybe they weren't always ghosts. Maybe they were vampires previously.
Yeah, I would debate that, not even on an Adventure Time level, theoretically speaking, but kind of like everybody's interest always like kind of like, do vampires have souls? Is it like that kind of whole viral thing where it's like, you're a vampire, the Twilight mentality, like, oh yeah, you're immortal because you don't have a soul anymore.
Oh, okay.
So I would imagine, especially after the Ghost Princess episode, that those ghosts definitely in their forms as well reminded me of people in like the Ghost Kingdom or Graveyard, if you want to call whatever it might be, Ghost Kingdom, Graveyard. They were just like that. Now, I don't know if they were more OP because they could suck brains out or whatever. But as good theoretically speaking.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was really fascinating. And it made sense in my mind too, because I was like, well, I don't know. I didn't think about what you had just said necessarily, that in some canon, vampires don't have souls. But to be fair, like, I personally don't think vampires are real anyways. So who knows what is the real canon of vampires?
I was more along the lines of like all all story, all TV, all books, vampire lore itself kind of combined.
Are vampires the ones that you can't, like, don't invite them inside their house? Like, they can't come inside your house until you invite them in?
Yes, and that plays a part in the Stakes miniseries. That's actually hilarious. But they cannot come into your house unless they are invited in.
Okay.
And that's very old school traditional.
Allie tried to say, in Marceline's closet, there's a doggy door because we've seen previously in, not Memory of a Memory, the one with fries. It came from the Nightosphere.
Yeah.
That Marceline has a little white, like, doodle, kind of a puppy dog. And so there's a doggy door, and Allie was like, well, she's basically inviting Jake inside her house anyways. There's a doggy door, and he's a dog. And I was like, okay, I guess so. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's all. I'm no more spoiler drops. I said that was enough of the spoiler anyway, that I'm not going to ruin any more extra Marceline. Now, one thing I will do, and this is, like, I think, again, before we move on to our Traveler's Log segment today, is to say that this is a good, let's get our feet up under us for, in terms of, like, Marceline and everything, because episode 25 of this season, which we are roughly about 10 episodes away from, is the biggest, and kind of what I was talking with Olivia about last week, is one of our biggest lore builders that we get overall. Like, I'm not sure if we'll get one this big. It puts a lot of things into the light. It puts a lot of stuff that I can finally talk to you about a lot of stuff without spoil dropping it anymore. And I think that that's kind of a good, like, okay, where do you stand with Marceline? Getting caught up on what we know, where we are with Marceline, kind of going up to the end of this season. And having Olivia on prior to that episode. Now, that would have been a really fun one to have her on as well. But she said herself, she's like, that's a great one, like, to watch and everything.
Well, I'm excited for it, man. I mean, we're right around the corner from that episode. It's kind of hard to believe, truly.
Yeah, I know. Let's take a little breather right here, and just kind of get our thoughts up under us. And guys, we have about 4, or if not 5, Traveler's Logs ready for you guys. We're doing a little catch up on the Traveler's Logs themselves, because we were like, oh my gosh, we can't spread 4 more out through other episodes and then have more coming in. But we're gonna get everybody talked about. We got some good ones.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, let's start at the very top. We had someone named Ethan send us in a Traveler's Log. He's talking about NEA number 75, season 3, episode 19 through 20, which is when we covered the Holly Jolly Secrets part 1 and 2. And of course, y'all talked about how Simon turned into an Ice King and how he has a lost princess. I love how y'all are already drawing these connections, hitting the nail on the head because later in the show, Simon, well, not crazy, has a nickname for Betty, which is Princess. Then even later, we see him transition to looking for princesses, not realizing he's actually looking for Betty. It makes Simon a beautiful character and my personal favorite. So they're drawing this, like, similarity between him calling Betty a princess, or his princess, and for whatever reason, maybe that's why he's constantly trying to kidnap princesses, because somewhere in his subconscious, he's just looking for Betty.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones where I think we hit the hammer on the head with our, theoretically speaking, and deeper breakdown of the character. Something that you wouldn't probably hit either if you didn't sit and talk for an hour about each episode.
No, I love that, though. I didn't think about that as a connection that could be made, where, like, maybe it is because in his mind he's still looking for Betty. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, our next log itself comes from Liam, who I think we've actually had a log from before. But Liam, gosh, I don't know why you want to talk about this one as much, but he wanted to talk about our episode was The Only Way to Suck. But it was another way, the one where the clowns come and they're trying to heal Finn's foot.
I did not want to keep talking about this episode, y'all. Can we stop writing in?
Liam, I enjoy your points, and I'm gonna do a quick correction for you here too. But I'm gonna read what you got, and then I've got a quick little excerpt about it too. But Liam says your podcast is my comfort podcast. Again, I love that. Thank you, Liam. He's binged it in like 2 weeks, and he's on episode like 74 at this point. He said, I love all the segments. I've watched the show 7 times at least, and he that Russell always asks spoiler drops that are somewhat insistently feel like he is, or ask the questions that lead to spoiler drops, and he feels like part of Russell's soul leaves his body as soon as he hears those spoiler drops. He said, different appreciation for this episode than you two seemed to have. I thought it encompassed the classic Adventure Time feel with its goofiness, charming characters, offbeat and creepy surreal humor with the clowns. Again, props to you, Liam, for appreciating that. He really appreciates Finn's growth and accepting everyone has their own way to appreciate and to reverse their own life. I also really enjoyed the dynamic, strange characters. I found them to be attractive in a peculiar sense, and the voice acting definitely complemented the aspects of the silly personalities. And then that Melons is also one of his low-key top songs. Again, we totally kind of blew past Finn's song in that episode too.
We did.
So it's a good thought. And I think, Russell and I are with you, Liam, that's what we got out of the episode is like an aspect of Finn's growth of like, it's not just his way or the highway. But I don't know. I think it was one of those ones where we left so many, kind of like what you said, that classic Adventure Time. I know Russell and I maybe are appreciating what we call treehouse episodes or what we call canon building episodes. So kind of that weird, surreal Adventure Time ness. It just hit maybe too random for both of us on that episode. Liam, I'm not going to read all of it, but Liam has a theoretically speaking that in this episode with the sentient stumps and trees and bushes and everything that because Finn is going after the Cyclops. And it says because Cyclops' power to turn things alive with his tears. The Cyclops' tears are actually healing powers, not bringing things alive powers. If I'm not mistaken, they're not.
Is that confirmed? Did you go back and rewatch that one?
I didn't go back and rewatch that one. I did want to either say to Liam, I'm not disclaiming your theory because being a fan of the show, you know that there is also a wizard that can bring things to life who is kind of out in the world at this point, buried under the ground. So I'm going to leave it at that without doing too much spoilers with Russell. But I think your point to the Cyclops' tears in this episode with all these sentient beings, I kind of think it might be, I can't remember his name right now.
This other character.
The other wizard, yeah.
I did not rewatch that episode for that theory because I want to never watch that episode again. I'm sorry. I'm trying my hardest to avoid that one. But I did want to confirm it, but I couldn't get it. Something inside me just stopped myself from rewatching that episode.
Oh yeah.
Well, regardless, he says, keep adventuring, friendly travelers. Glad that we're all a part of the journey, or he's a part of the journey. Also, we got another one from Zoe, aka DJ BMOZ, one of the easily one of the best DJ names we've got so far. I love this episode. I love the episode this week, and there it is. I was like, what episode is she talking about? Beyond This Earthly Realm. It's definitely one of my favorite episodes of the early seasons of Adventure Time. And I feel it focuses on a lot of themes that are more solidified as the show progresses. I always joke that my cats live between realms, like, it's great.
Yeah,
Ice King does, because they're always looking at things that I don't see, which that is so true. Like every cat I've ever seen, it seems like they just have something else going on in their head, and they're just not like truly down to reality like we are. Anyways, in that episode, I believe I talked about the handle that I have in my bathroom, and I wanted to know about other people's like sacred bathroom items, right? Yeah. So Zoe's is, when I was 15, I started working at a cat cafe in Atlanta, which is amazing. I loved working there, and it was my first job, and it was such a huge part of my teen years. Unfortunately, we had to close in 2022 due to the pandemic and lost from a lack of funds. And during our last weekend, there were a lot of things that we were selling or giving away to clear out space. Clear the space out. One of the things I begged my boss to let me have was the toilet paper holder it's like a
cat-shaped one.
Yeah, cat-shaped statue type thing. She sent a photo in, and it's pretty great. But anyways, so let's see. I always just wanted to look. So it looks just like her cat named Cake. The cat, of course, named after the Adventure Time character. I was able to take it. Man, I'm like, it's hard for me to like read how small the text is. I'm sorry, y'all. I was able to take the toilet paper holder home, and I still have it in my bathroom today. Cake has definitely had her fair share of silly moments with it, and the toilet paper holder always reminds me of the wonderful times I had working at the Cat Cafe. It's such a random thing, too. Thanks so much, and keep up the awesome podcast. I look forward to hearing them every week. DJ B. Mosey.
Thanks, DJ B. Mosey. Yeah, good DJ name. Good DJ name. Next one we have is actually comes from Kayla. I think we've had Kayla write in several times as well. I'm not going to read hers all the way through again. We are pressed for some time today as well, a little bit. So, but Kayla wanted to first share that she has the Adventure Time tattoo. Send it our way. It is a blue butterfly that says everything stays. For all the fans, they definitely know what that means, pertaining back to the Catalyst comment and the butterfly. And that's all I can say, because I don't want to spoil too much for Russell. So sorry, Kayla, we can't go into the details of the coolness behind your tattoo, because it will spoil things for Russell. It could be one of the death butterflies, but those are also very cool too. But I wanted to put that, and she says she floops the pig as well. But good encouragement for Russell to get an Adventure Time tattoo.
Yeah. People want it.
She also wanted to encourage you to get a Breath of the Wild tattoo, because you talk about that almost as much as you talk about Adventure Time on the podcast.
No, not nearly. I mean, hey, the new Breath of the Wild, like the sequel, is coming out real soon, and I am so excited for that one. Yeah.
It's gonna be good. I have a Switch now, and I might just play that one too.
Wait, what did you get a Switch?
I'm long-term borrowing my in-laws' Nintendo Switch.
Very nice.
AKA, I think they just kind of gave it to us.
Okay, there you go. Well, hey, you want to read the last one, DJ?
I will. We got Dominic, aka DJ Dom Da Bomb.
Bomb Da Bomb.
I'm sorry, Dom Da Bomb. DJ BMO Z might take the cake on best names for the Traveler's Log segment so far.
It's not a competition, though. It's not a competition.
Actually, it is a competition, and we have somebody who's in first place right now. Dominic says, I started the podcast about a week ago, and I flippin' love it. I was going to wait until I fully caught up before I sent a log. He's currently on 74 as well, so everybody's, I think, finding it and catching up, which is fantastic. But he couldn't resist once we started talking about the episode, The New Frontier, which is season 3, episode 18, with Banana Man and kind of everything as it pertains to Destiny. Dominique goes on and says, the first thing I thought when rewatching this episode was a Taoist teaching that I try to keep in the forefront of my mind as I go about my daily life. It compares a life to a river, and it says that the world is I'm the same with you. I had a hard time reading this. In the world, some people choose to swim against the current of the river, Finn, in this episode. He is trying to stop Destiny and change it at all costs, which almost ends up running Jake into the same fate he's trying to avoid. We see this in stories like Oedipus, where running from your fate ultimately ends up being the very thing that locks you into it. Other people choose to swim with the current, i.e. Jake in this episode, and he is also caught up so much in the Croak dream and the inevitability in his mind of that which causes him to charge headfirst into his destiny. This gives Jake attention blindness to everything that he enjoys in life, causing him not to focus on the now, but only on what is going to happen inevitably in the quickest way to get there, almost shortcutting life. The teaching says that both of these ways of living are bad, and both paths cause you to focus on different times in life so much that you aren't truly living in the now and being present with your current existence. The Taoist says that instead, you should just float along with the river, let it carry you. I granted that this is a TV show, and that would have been a boring episode, but if Finn and Jake would have just ignored that fact that Banana Man showed up on their house, it would have just been an ordinary day for the two of them. Both boys are so intent on altering the path in the river of life in this episode that they aren't appreciating the existence in the now, which both as two bros lucky enough to exist at the same time in the same place. And that is very similar to what we see in the Distant Lands, the Distant Lands HBO special about kind of, again, it gets very existential with existence and time and space existing together. So, Dominic, I love your thought process on this, because it's very much what I feel like Russell and I scratched the surface on it, but we did not get that deep into the what destiny actually is, and leaning too much into it nihilistically and fighting it too much existentially.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that I think we spent some time talking about our own religious beliefs and how they would relate to that episode, or how they would relate or like connect with either of those two characters. So it is really great having, and I believe I asked for that, like someone to write in about their own spirituality and how their beliefs could relate to that episode. So that was awesome. That was one of my favorite Travelers Logs that we've had in a really long time.
Yeah, I like that one. I like having that kind of opinion on potentially belief, or just like subset of a belief of a religion or non-religion that can really pertain to the show. Something that Russell and I may not reflect on as much, at least through the same lens as you guys.
Yeah, man. But Ned, how you feel? We went through those Travelers Logs real fast, man. We've got a weird, y'all. There's a little bit of a time limit today. And I never look at the clock when we're recording these podcasts, but doing that, it makes me nervous.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, no, it does.
I'm like, I don't like that. I feel like anxious right now. Like it's all I could think about. But regardless, man, that was great. Thank y'all. Keep writing in. If you haven't done a Traveler's Log before, please do. You can hit us up at nea.travelerslog@gmail.com. And we'll, hopefully read them on the podcast. And I almost always give a little response to them as well.
Well, all that being said, too, we have so much of the show left to go, and so much of what we're talking about and reviewing right now that will pertain to things in the future. If we're missing something too, that if you can share with us, again, not so much into the extent where you're giving Russell spoilers or anything like that, but share with us so we can be like, hey, if you haven't thought about these upcoming episodes in this way, keep your mind open, or be ready to talk about it that way. That's also why we like kind of hearing your deep thoughts on everything.
Yeah, definitely. Now, did you have a least favorite episode from the Marceline episodes?
I did have a least favorite episode. I would have to say it's probably Henchmen.
Is it really?
Yeah, okay. I mean, like you had mentioned, you couldn't go back and skip any of them. But when it came to Henchmen, I like the nighttime aspect of it. I like the little dude with the bow tie. She sucks the red out of the bow tie. So there's like little moments in that one that I enjoy. But for it being Marceline's second episode ever, it just kind of seems like one of those like season 1 filler. Hey, we have a character we can just do something random with. I don't know.
I think that one and Heat Signature are the two that if I were going to skip a Marceline episode, it might be one of those two. Heat Signature, like I remember even feeling like, oh, this doesn't really feel in order, because there was another episode dealing with Heat Signature, right, where they were all going to watch it in like Finn's living room or whatever, which that episode also for me is a skipper. But I don't know. Those are the two that I was like, they're threes for sure, but I wasn't really trying to like spend too much time living in either of those two episodes.
No. And Heat Signature too. It's again, I think we've seen Finn and Jake's character that develop themselves, that the entire antagonist and the problem and the situation they get themselves into in Heat Signature, like, would not happen with season 4 Finn and Jake either. Yeah. They'd be too smart to wind up in that situation.
For sure. Well, Ned, do you have a rec for us this week?
I think I do. Oh my gosh, what about like I don't know. I've probably said it before, but like I just finished Mando this week. They just finished season 3. I was wondering if I was going to like this season 2 was kind of iffy back in the past. They wrapped up the last 2 episodes of Mando really well with, I don't know, just it was good storytelling, great action, felt very Star Wars-y, and they kind of teed everything up with a happy ending that's going to tee up the Ahsoka show really well. So that's just, as a Star Wars fan, I appreciated it being one of the better things to come from Star Wars in a while.
That's great. I still haven't looked or watched any of the second season, which truly in my mind is kind of the third season. because Boba Fett was really the second season of
there was a
Mandalorian.
second season of Mando, and then you had to watch Boba Fett, which is like season 2.5.
Okay,
and this is season 3. Yeah, this is officially season 3
I forgot that was
now.
season. So I did see season 2. I haven't seen season 3.
Yeah,
but the Boba Fett thing, I don't know. I'll watch it. I'll watch season 3 of Mando.
You got to watch at least those like 3 Boba Fett episodes for the Darksaber lore.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think my route this week, I've biked to work 2 episodes. 2 times this past week. I go to work to the office 3 out of 5 days. And so I rode my bike because I'm able to go through a bunch of neighborhoods to get to my office. And it was great, man. I missed that. I'm so glad that I live over near like my office in West Nashville again so that I can do that because I had moved pretty far north and there was no doing that from Madison. So
yeah, which way did you take, if you don't mind me asking, which way did you just go down Charlotte Avenue?
No, man, I just literally Sylvan Park. I just went all the way through the neighborhood. You can go through the neighborhood to get to Centennial from here.
Yeah, okay, that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I basically just did that over by just riding my bike past where I used to live, over by the ballet and all that stuff. But anyways, y'all, thank you so much. I guess if there was another rec, sorry, I did have another one. Saturday morning cartoons. I watched so many Adventure Time episodes this morning, just kind of like in preparation to remember all the Marceline episodes. And it's such a vibe doing that on a Saturday morning. I definitely recommend it. But
yeah, it's one of those good Saturdays. I mean, this is the first Saturday I've had in a while where the only plan I had was to podcast today. And it's that whole mentality, like get up, it's 8 a.m., eat your breakfast. And you're like, I don't have any responsibilities today. I don't have any obligations. And that's that childhood. Like I can watch cartoons for 4 hours with no repercussions. And that's something that we as adults, just mentality wise, don't get that very often.
Yeah, don't do that very often. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we'll be back next week with an actual episode. We'll dive deep into season 4, episode 16, Burning Low. It's a dang good episode.
Yeah, a great one to jump back into after 2 specials.
I think so. Check us out on Instagram at Neverending Adventure Podcast, TikTok at Neverending Adventure Cast, Twitter at NEA_podcast. And yeah, we'll see you all next week. Party forever.
I love you guys.